Today we're looking at Harriet Beecher Stowe. Hello, welcome to the Daily Bellringer. Please don't forget to subscribe and take a look at the questions down in the description. Also, don't forget to check out dailybellringer.com for more resources that go along with many of the Bellringer videos. Harriet Beecher Stowe was a writer and leading abolitionist of the mid-1800s. At a time when women did not get to have a voice on political issues, Stowe used her writings as a medium to fight against the institution of slavery and give women a voice. Harriet was born Harriet Elizabeth Beecher in Litchfield, Connecticut, the sixth of 11 children born to Lyman Beecher, who was a pastor, and his wife Roxana Beecher. When Harriet was only 5 years old, her mother Roxana died of tuberculosis. As a child, Harriet attended Hartford Female Seminary in Hartford, Connecticut. Unlike many girls of the time, Harriet received a formal education in her youth. At the age of 21, she moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, when her father became the president of Lane Theological Seminary. Living in Cincinnati, she was just across the Ohio River from Kentucky, where slavery was legal. On several occasions, Harriet attended events on the Kentucky side and was exposed firsthand to just how terrible slavery was. It was also while here that Harriet began writing short stories and joined some writing clubs. In one of these clubs, she met Reverend Calvin Stowe, and in January of 1836, they were married. They would go on to have 7 children together. Calvin encouraged Harriet's writing, and in 1850, Calvin took a job teaching at Bowdoin College in Brunswick, Maine, which incidentally, Bowdoin College is also the college which Joshua Chamberlain taught at, and remember, Chamberlain was the hero of the Battle of Gettysburg for the Union during the Civil War. But back to the Stowes. Both Calvin and Harriet were staunch abolitionists, arguing for the elimination of slavery in the United States. The Stowes' home was a stop on the Underground Railroad as they aided escaped enslaved people in reaching Canada and freedom. Harriet listened to stories from runaway enslaved people about their experiences working on plantations in the South. Also in 1850, Congress began debating and would later pass the Compromise of 1850, which included the Fugitive Slave Act that made it much more difficult for enslaved people to escape and forbid Northerners from aiding escaped enslaved people. Harriet was outraged by this new law, as were many other Northerners. At around the same time, in 1851, Harriet's 18-month-old son Samuel died. She was overcome with grief, and her grief was channeled into her writing as she began to write a story about just how terrible slavery was based on her numerous conversations with escaped enslaved people. In June of 1851, her story, Uncle Tom's Cabin, was first published as a serial, or a story that would be released in short chapters in the newspaper The National Era. From June 1851 until April 1852, the paper published each part of the story. In March of 1852, Uncle Tom's Cabin was published as a book with a first run of 5,000 copies. But within a year, the book sold over 300,000 copies. People in the North were appalled by what they read, and many of them had turned a blind eye to what slavery was really all about. But people in the South, they were outraged, claiming that the book was false and did not truly depict the institution of slavery. Now, I won't get into exact detail of the story, as I highly recommend you read the story for yourself, but the story, which is historical fiction, meaning the characters are fictional, but it does accurately follow history, but the story follows the life of an enslaved person named Uncle Tom and what his life was like as an enslaved person. In 1853, Harriet also published another book called A Key to Uncle Tom's Cabin, which included references and testimonies to back up just how valid or true her book was to what slavery was actually like. The book sold well overseas as well, and Harriet went on a lecture tour in Britain speaking out against slavery. She stated that the reason she wrote the book was to educate Northerners on just how terrible the institution of slavery was, and to hopefully make Southerners recognize that what they were doing was wrong. Interestingly, Southern authors began writing novels known as anti-Tom novels that attempted to make Southern society and slavery look acceptable. But none of these novels measured up to the popularity of Stowe's work. As the Civil War began in 1861, Stowe continued to be a leading voice to eliminate slavery and in fact met with President Lincoln in 1862. In 1864, the Stowe family moved to Hartford, Connecticut, and as the Civil War came to a conclusion, Stowe purchased property in Jacksonville, Florida, where the family spent their winters. Harriet continued to write as well as argue for women's rights. In 1886, her husband Calvin passed away, and it's believed that after his death, Harriet began to suffer from Alzheimer's or dementia, and in fact, it's recorded that she began to write Uncle Tom's Cabin over again, believing that she was writing it for the first time. Harriet Beecher Stowe died on July 2nd, 1896, at the age of 85. Stowe's writings gave women a voice on political issues and aided in bringing to an end the institution of slavery. At a time when women did not get equal status in society, she opened the door for other women to play a more prominent role. So with that, hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching.